Welcome back to another fantastic episode of So You're Ready to Date. Buckle in. This is one that I think Angie and I are pretty passionate about, where we're going to talk today about how to not lose yourself once you get into this relationship. Yes, it's fun and wonderful to be in that new cocoon and bubble of new love and new relationship, but sometimes the bubble pops, real life comes back in, and we may not recognize who we are because we've kind of wrapped ourselves in this relationship. So we kind of want to dig this apart, pull it apart, get in and see how we can avoid morphing into somebody that we didn't recognize because we were enamored of a relationship.
I think that is a great introduction. And as you were talking, it kind of reminds me of when you're in high school and you start dating and all of a sudden you start blowing your friends off because hanging out with your significant other is way more important than your friends. And that's what that description kind of reminds me of. And we're here today to help you recognize when that starts happening in your life and how to stop that and keep yourself in a healthy space and instead of getting all wrapped up in somebody else's identity or creating a whole new couple identity that isn't either one of you.
This is not about the next Brangelina or the next, Benifer or whatever it is. Those references I know date me, but bear with me here. This is about two individual people in a relationship and not one smooshed conglomerate of a person.
Right. I think it's important to remember that a relationship is made up of two individual people coming together and sharing their lives rather than two individual people coming together to create one life.
Yes. Important distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of different topics and some food for thought as we kind of start to take that deep dive into this. And I think number one, we're gonna kind of base that around your calendar. And let's talk about what your calendar looked like before you started dating and what your calendar looks like now that you're dating.
Yeah, right. You have like a certain finite amount of time. And I'm sure there's plenty of things that you want to do, need to do, should do to get in there. We want to make sure that you're recognizing that you're having enough time and space for the things that are important to you. So is there enough time with your friends? Is there enough time with your family? And most importantly, is there enough you time so that you're feeling like you're getting the time you need to recharge, to do the stuff you need to do, to have that space to enjoy your hobbies and your things?
Exactly. So when you're dating and when you first start going out with somebody, it's real easy to get caught up in the infatuation mode and to want to spend all of your free time with somebody and to blow off your family, to blow off your friends, or even to blow off the time that you would normally spend taking care of yourself or taking care of other things that are going on in your household. And at this point, we just wanted to advise you or tell you or give you our opinion that maybe pushing the pause button on that and really understanding what time do you have available in your schedule to date and how can they be scheduled into your life rather than overtake your life.
Yes. And I think sometimes a good tool for that is like if you're at all questioning, maybe you schedule everything through your like Google Calendar or your calendar on your phone, or you have a paper one, maybe going through and highlighting, okay, this color is family, this is friends, this is me, this is significant other. And then having that visual representation of being like, oh, there's a lot more of this than I kind of like, or there's not as much of this as I'd like. So maybe taking a moment, sitting down and really looking at your schedule and being like, I've kind of blown off the last couple of drinks with the friends, or I kind of skipped out early on the last family dinner because I wanted to do, not saying that you can't, but making sure that you have a balance of time alone, time with the other people in your life that are important, and then time with this new person, because the friends want to know and see you. The family wants to get to know you and see you and catch up on what's going on in your life. And so by excluding everybody else, you kind of put yourself in a bit of a deficit, I think sometimes, where all of a sudden you come out for air 3 months later and you're like, oh, all this stuff has happened for my friends and family, and I've not been there to kind of help celebrate or support or do whatever. So making sure that you're having that appropriate balance in your life. It's never going to be a completely even, but in a balance that works for you.
Right. And one week might be a little heavy on one thing and a little light on something else. Or maybe you only see each other once a week, or maybe it's long distance and you have to travel someplace. So you are only able to see each other when your schedules allow for you to travel to visit each other. So those are factors in there too. But I think that it is just a really good idea not to clear your schedule for someone else. Don't clear your schedule. Your schedule is full. That's fine. Figure out what your priorities are and where you might be able to shift some things, but you're not clearing your schedule for somebody else. It is important to retain your identity, your individuality, and to continue to live your life. We hope that you found your forever mate. That would be great, right? Maybe that was what your goal when we started talking about what you were looking for in a relationship. But if that's what you want, hopefully you have. But if you have found your forever mate, you should also be able to have your life. But if you haven't found your forever mate, life is going to continue after that relationship is over. So it's really important for you not to put yourself in a place where you don't have a life after that relationship is over.
Excellent point. Because I want to just kind of bring this up because it hit my head, and then kind of a red flag. The right person will encourage you wholeheartedly to get out and have a life. They won't need to be the center of your world. If you have somebody who's been like, I don't think you need to see them, or you're seeing so-and-so too often, take that as maybe a reddish flag that this might not be quite the relationship you think it is. I always feel like the right person would want you to have friends, would want you to be able to talk to your family, do the stuff that you enjoy, even if it means you're not glued at the hip 24/7, because the right person is going to trust that you're going out there and doing the things that you love and not getting into shenanigans. So I think that's a point to remember, that if somebody's been like, no, I want all of your time should be for me, that's probably going to be a red flag, and just to start to kind of watch those kind of situations.
Yeah, that's typically a sign of somebody who is insecure in themselves, or it could be a sign of some control issues kind of going on. So there's a few things to look out for if somebody does want that much of your time and tells you or kind of gives you hints that you need to restrict access to other friends and family and other activities outside of them if they are not the center of your universe. And they shouldn't be the center of your universe. You are not looking for an idol. You are looking for a partner in life.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, maybe you are looking for an idol, but that idol should not be your partner.
Right. Because that is a whole other episode that we're not prepared to talk about today. But we're
Right?
looking for somebody who wants the nice little partnership thing happening here.
Yes, for sure. And so we're talking about making sure that you have a life, but you are bringing somebody new into your life. And this person might share a lot of your interests, but they might have new interests too. And it's okay to go try those things. It's okay to get out and drive a golf cart and swing a golf club if you have never done it before. Give it a shot. Maybe you'll like it, but don't feel obligated to do it if you don't.
Right. We were talking off mic before we got on here that if any of you have seen Parks and Rec, you know Anne, and she just would dive into these relationships head first and just kind of become the person she was dating. So when she was dating Andy, it was all about like the music and the flannels and the grunge. And then when she was dating Chris, it was all the health stuff and the vitamins and the workout stuff. And with Tom, it was all the fancy stuff. So it's really easy to get into these relationships and almost morph yourself into either the person you're dating or the ideal person you think they want to date. There's a reason they picked you, and it probably wasn't because you were exactly like them. There's probably something different from them that they were attracted to. Hopefully, I mean, can't speak for everybody, but typically you're trying to find somebody who complements you. I don't need a mirror image or somebody exactly like me. I want somebody to kind of complement my strengths and weaknesses, who maybe brings a different perspective. So having that awareness, if you've tried something and you don't like it, but you still go along with it because you think that that's the best way to get your significant other to like you, have that ring some alarm bells for you. Take a moment, step back and be like, am I doing this because I like it? And if I don't, why am I still doing it? So all of this is about awareness so that when you feel yourself maybe going down that little bit of a slippery slope, you can pull back the reins a little bit and be like, you can go and play basketball with the boys. It's not my thing. I will meet you for juice afterwards. It can be as simple as that. Go do your thing, enjoy it. Don't worry about me. I'm going to go do whatever. We can meet up after.
Right. And I think that is something that's important too. Again, we're talking about what to look for in a partner and how to approach talking to your partner. But part of dating, and the biggest part of dating, is looking at ourselves. Are we being the best, most authentic partner that we can be? Because you are going to attract not what you want, but what you are and who you are. So who are you being and how are you showing up? So just like you want your partner to support your interests and to let you have time with the girls or time with the guys or time with your friends, if they're whoever they are, or to let you continue to do your activities, you too also need to be supportive and tell them to go have fun and to go hang out with their friends, and take a look at how that makes you feel. And I'm going to say that if it doesn't make you feel good and it doesn't make you be supportive, look at, do you trust them? Do you trust yourself? And if that doesn't feel good, to encourage them to go be the best versions of themselves and to go hang out and have fun with their friends. Why not? That's something to dig into, because you're not showing up as your best self if you are discouraging somebody from being who they are.
Yeah. Because like you said, ultimately you want somebody who's going to encourage you to be your best self and for you to encourage to be their best self. So how can this happen? Hopefully from a space of encouragement and not one of jealousy and mistrust.
Right. If you've been hurt before, if you've been in a relationship that has had some infidelity or been in a relationship where things have not ended well, sometimes that trust is hard. Sometimes you really have to take a look at that. Are you setting unrealistic expectations for your significant other to earn your trust? And has your significant other done anything to erode that trust? Maybe it was freely given in a past relationship, and because of things that have happened, you've now put up this defense mechanism and you don't have that trust there, and there is jealousy and there is uncomfortable feelings in extending that trust and reopening your heart to someone new and letting that person be who they are. And that is an internal issue. That is not an issue for our partners to fix. That is an issue for us to fix for ourselves and to take a hard look at and kind of do some internal self-work in order to make sure that we are being true to ourselves and letting our partners be true to themselves in our relationships.
It's a great point to bring up, because I think it's so much easier to all of a sudden like defensive, put it on the other person. Well, I just don't know. Okay, what about me is bringing up this feeling? Because sometimes this is like the ugly part of self-growth and self-healing and this whole journey, is that sometimes it's about looking at ourselves, looking at those feelings and emotions and trying to figure out why they're coming up, because more than likely, hopefully that other person hasn't given you anything to trigger that. But sometimes it requires us sitting with those uncomfortable, really gross, sucky feelings and figuring out, why am I feeling this way when I haven't been shown that they are like past relationship?
And that is such a great point, talking about it from that perspective and thinking about and remembering that they are not our past relationship. And that's a trigger. And if we're looking at that and taking a look at our triggers, it is the responsibility of our partners to be open to hearing that, to listening to us, and to be there to have those discussions. But it's ultimately up to us to fix those triggers. If that's something that makes me feel a certain way, there is nothing that my partner can do to make me stop feeling that way, except stop hanging out with his friends. Well, that's not healthy for him if I'm talking about my personal relationship. And if he does that, then he's losing himself in the relationship. We're not in a relationship to ask our partners to change. So it's our responsibility to take a look at that and take those steps and take that action to heal ourselves so that we can stand firm and be in our relationship and be comfortable letting them be themselves and also standing up and being ourselves.
Yeah. It always reminds me of that saying that you hear all over the place. I trust you. It's just that I don't trust all those other people you're going to be around. Well, no, if you trust me, then you trust that I know my boundaries. I know the boundaries within our relationship. Then there's no reason that you have to trust everybody else because you trust me. So that always felt like that cop out of, I don't really want to look at what's going on with me. So I'm just going to say it's everybody else because I'm not prepared to deal with why I'm feeling a certain way about you going with that certain group of people. So
exactly. And don't go do stuff with your significant other just to avoid feeling that way, right? Again, if your significant other, we'll use the basketball analogy again, wants to go play basketball and you're not a basketball fan and you don't want to watch it and you don't want to go do it, but you don't want to look at how to heal yourself and feel like you have to tag along and you have to go do that just so that they don't do something untrustworthy, or just because you don't trust the other people that they're with, or you don't trust your significant other. That is an area where you can sit back and you can do some work on yourself, because that's where you're going to lose yourself in this relationship. And that's where you're going to, I'm not a clinical person, or I'm not licensed to make this claim, but that's where some of that codependency comes in, where we do what we think is going to make the other person happy at all costs to ourselves. We don't go do what's going to make us happy because we need to keep the other person happy in the relationship. And you totally lose yourself in that relationship. And fixing it on the back end is really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, I think there's an amazing point to be like, all right, yeah, you can eventually do this, but if we do a little bit of work up front, saves us, hopefully, a lot of work at the back end if we don't get ourselves into a position that maybe we weren't expecting to get into.
And that's just one example of how you can lose yourself in a relationship. Or actually, that's many. We wrapped up a lot of stuff in that, and there's a lot to unpack there. But again, now we want to flip the script and we want to talk about what you might see in your partner, because this is a two-way street, and it takes looking in the mirror at ourselves as well as looking at our relationship. You can't really look in the mirror or look at what your partner is doing from their perspective, but you can try to walk a mile in their shoes and try to put that on. But let's flip the script. Are they doing that? Are they feeling insecure? Do they have the trust issues? Are they following you around doing activities that they don't enjoy just to keep you happy?
Yes. And I think in the beginning, it's one of those things that feels somewhat flattering. It can, where you're like, oh, they're just so interested in what I want to do. They want to do our stuff all the time. Or, we're just so in love that we just don't want to be apart from each other. But the introvert in me would, at a certain point, like, I need you to just not be in my space because I need like alone, quiet time to be just by myself. So, that's where, unintentional fights can start to happen as well, where you're like, you have just stepped all over my boundaries and I don't know how to politely tell you to back off because I need this particular amount of space, or I need you to not follow me around like a puppy for at least a day, or to text me 15 million times a day. And just, so I think sometimes it may come off as romantic in the beginning, but that can really start to be like a thorn in the side of your whole relationship if you don't have that healthy space from each other. At a certain point, I wonder, what do you have to talk about if you don't ever go apart from each other? At a certain point, do you run out of things to say because, well, can't talk about that because we were at the exact same point at the exact same time. So having that space, going and doing your thing gives you experiences and stories and things to come back to your person and talk to them about and share with them and kind of bring them into your world without them having to be glued to your side all the time.
Exactly. That is so true. It makes for interesting conversation. It gives us introverts a chance to recoup and have that time to rebuild our energy stores. And that, if you are an introvert dating an extrovert, that can be something that may not be easily understood, because an extrovert isn't going to understand why. May not, I won't say that they don't, but they may not understand why you need to be alone, because they need to be around somebody all the time. So again, encouraging them to go out and have relationships with other people and friends and their family outside of the relationship can give you the space and also give them the social interaction that they need. But you talked about boundaries and understanding how to effectively communicate within those boundaries when you kind of are losing yourself, or when things aren't going the way that you want, or you do get yourself wrapped up in something. Because at the beginning of the relationship, it is really easy to acquiesce and follow that through and just go along with everything because it's new and it's fun. And I've never been golfing before, and I've never played basketball before. Okay, those things. But if there are activities that you've never done, it's real easy to get wrapped up in that and to go try it. And then it's their favorite sport. So you don't want to let them down and say, I don't really like to do that. So we can lose ourselves, and we can set this expectation in a relationship without even meaning to. And then it becomes a matter of, how do you backtrack and appropriately address those boundaries and talk about those things so that it doesn't come off as mean, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, abrupt or hurtful, and cause a lot of hard feelings or cause unintentional arguments.
Well, and I think almost approaching it from that like introvert extrovert lens, where being like, I know that this really jazzes you up and gets you excited and you enjoy going and doing that thing if you happen to be an extrovert. For me, it just isn't exciting anymore. I think being honest and being saying, when you do that, I really like to have some alone time to read my book, or I really like to have some alone time to, get into a bubble bath or do something, I think if you can spin it and be like, I like when you go do your thing because it gives me space to go do this thing that I love. And then we can come back and do a thing together that we both love. And so I think it's coming at it from this approach of, you are your own separate whole person. Before you ever met me, I was that same way. And I want you to still enjoy those things. And I don't mind coming like once in a while. Maybe that's a good way to talk about those boundaries. Or there's spaces that you can compromise. I mean, like, I'm not coming every week, but if you're doing a championship, yes, I will come watch you play. Or is there, something where you can kind of compromise, like, hey, can you just give me half an hour after work, and then I'm ready to talk, or I'm ready to text, or I'm ready to go out. So finding those places where maybe there can be some compromise between what you do, and it's not maybe so black and white of like, I hate this, I'm never doing this. How can I maybe support you in a way that feels so good to you, but also isn't completely at the loss of me and my needs?
I love that. That is a great way to approach it. And kind of going a little bit further, even digging deeper into that. Let's say that you go, and I'm going to use golf because I know that I don't golf and I know that my significant other does. So it's a really good example for me. But let's say that there is a golfing thing. I am still invited frequently, more frequently than I would like, but I appreciate that. And I don't want him to stop inviting me. So I'm still invited, and I still politely decline. And let's say that you do that without having a conversation about whether or not you actually enjoy golfing. All of a sudden, your significant other can start to feel rejected because it feels like you don't want to go share something with them that they enjoy. And that can lead to saying yes because you feel like you have to, because they're going to get upset or think something's wrong if you don't. That's not the way that it has to be. you can have a conversation and say, you know what, I tried this and I think I set the wrong expectation. And I just want to clear the air. I love that you want me to go with you. I love that you enjoy this sport. I don't enjoy this sport. So I would rather spend our time doing something together that we both enjoy. And I would rather let you have that time for your friends or your family or whoever it is that you go golf with. But I appreciate you asking me. That way I can make the decision, but I don't want you to be hurt, offended, or upset when I decline. And giving them a chance to respond. And that is one way that you can help them understand why you're telling them no or why you're declining to spend that time with them.
That's an important distinction. I think having that conversation and going that one step further of being like, it's not because I don't want to spend time with you. It's just that this doesn't happen to be an activity I enjoy. I would rather our time together be spent doing things that we both enjoy. But again, it's about that clear, kind communication. If we're telling them clearly what our expectations are, that we don't necessarily enjoy this particular thing, but hey, I really enjoy when we go-kart racing or whatever other activity it might be. So sometimes sandwiching it between, yeah, this might not be my thing, but I really love it when we do X, Y, or Z. But setting, like you said, setting those expectations clearly and concisely, and, so that both people understand what's going on, saves us from interpreting an answer, saves us from thinking that we know what's going on when maybe we don't. And then I think saves us from an argument and hurt feelings and then stuff that maybe we didn't intend to happen, all because we said no to an invite.
Yes, I think it's very important to remember that the thoughts inside our head are not what our partner knows. Our partner doesn't know why we're saying no. They just hear the no, and then they're free to read into it whatever they want to read into it. So it is important that when you're setting those expectations, you're taking responsibility for yourself, your own decision, and your own feelings. And it's important that you are clearing up what that expectation is and that you are explaining not necessarily why you don't like golf, but explaining why you're saying no. Another example is when you first start dating someone, maybe the first time you have them over to your house, you make an elaborate meal and you do all this cooking and planning, and maybe you're an excellent cook, but maybe you hate to cook. Maybe you hate it. And you just did it because you're like, oh, I could do this special thing. And it's your love language and it's this act of service. And you go out of your way to do that. And suddenly your partner is expecting you to cook for them because they see what an excellent cook you are, but you hate doing it. Instead of letting that fester, that's another place where you can come in and say, hey, hold up a second. I set an expectation here. I did it. I made the choice. I set an expectation, but I want to clear the air because I really don't enjoy this. And setting it that way and setting that expectation is sometimes I enjoy doing this for our relationship. Sometimes I enjoy doing this for myself when I'm in that mood, but 99.9% of the time, I don't enjoy doing this. So I just want to make sure that I am very clear that this is not going to be a standard practice. If there becomes an expectation in your relationship that makes you feel resentful.
Yeah, because I think so much of this could just be like nipped in the bud if we would just have these conversations, which I get are not always fun. I know it's talking about feelings. It's talking about all of this stuff where you feel like, shouldn't they just get it? But you have to stop and think, do I ever just get it? No.
Rewind and listen to the episode on some of those difficult conversations.
But if you look at it from a lens of, yes, you might have this little bit of temporary discomfort, but knowing that, okay, we don't have to have hopefully this conversation consistently. We had it. We kind of know where we are. I don't want to say ever, because I don't think that sets a realistic expectation either, because you're going to grow, you're going to change, your relationship's going to change. So you're going to have to revisit conversations, but you've already had it once. It's going to make it that much easier the next time you'll be like, hey, guess what? Can we talk about this again?
Right. Maybe you take a cooking class and you discover that cooking is a lot easier than you thought. Or maybe you hire somebody that will clean up the kitchen after you're done cooking and now you love to cook. Now it might be time to have another conversation. You're right. Things can change, your interests can change. Maybe I didn't like to go to the gym 6 months ago, and then I took a class and I learned how to exercise so that it is more comfortable, or whatever the case may be, and now I like to go do it. So it's okay to reset expectations, and it's okay to change and to change your mind. You are a dynamic human being and changes happen.
I think if you're going to take anything away from the episode today, it's just to let that be like the guiding principle. Things are going to change. You are going to change. Hopefully, as a unit, your relationship kind of grows and changes, but always to be open to having those conversations about what's in your best interest, what's in my best interest, what's in our best interest as a relationship. So having those conversations. So I think, like we said at the beginning, so it's like two dynamic people coming together and having a relationship, as opposed to us just like coming together and forming this amorphous blob that is now, the relationship. So
yes, when people think about you, do they think about you as two halves of a whole, or do they think about you as a whole? And the goal should be two halves of a whole. You're better together, but you are whole apart.
what a wonderful way to just wrap up this episode. You're perfect and whole as you are. It would be nice to have somebody to kind of complement that energy. Yeah.
Yes. So if you have any questions, remember to drop us a line. We are at soyourereadytodate@gmail.com, and that will be linked in the show notes. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.